Imagine it's the late 1960s. The world is looking towards the moon, but in Osaka, Japan, Kajimasa Kozuki is looking at jukeboxes. Specifically, he's looking at how to fix them. He founds a company called Konami, not to make games, but to handle the rentals and repairs for music players. There are no pixels, no sprites, no Konami code. It's just needles, vinyl, and a small repair shop. Little did Kozuki know the jukebox era was just a 10-year tutorial for becoming one of the most legendary names in gaming history. Today, we're tracing the journey from the jukebox to the joystick on This Week in Video Game History. Welcome to today's episode of This Week in Video Game History. I'm your host, Doug Coleman, and on this show, we shine the light of love on games gone by. We have a massive week of history to unpack for March 16th through the 22nd. We are covering a lot of ground today, from the arcade gold rush of the 80s to the digital islands that saved our sanity in 2020. We'll be diving into a timeline that features some of the biggest names in the business, and our feature story today focuses on the 57th anniversary of the founding of Konami. Plus, we're looking back at the day a digital dollhouse officially became the king of PC gaming. So grab your controller, press start to continue. March 20th, 1982, Pac-Man arrives on the Atari 2600. This is arguably the most infamous port in history. Atari was so confident that it would sell that they actually manufactured 12 million cartridges despite only 10 million people owning a Atari 2600 at the time. They figured the game would be a system seller for the other 2 million people. It was programmed by Todd Frey in just 6 months, and the technical limitations were brutal. The ghost flickered because the 2600 couldn't draw 4 sprites at once, and the sound was a series of clonks instead of waka waka. It sold 7.2 million copies, but the backlash from fans who wanted the arcade experience helped trigger the great video game crash of 1983.
Ladies and gentlemen, Glass Joe!
March 18th, 1984, Punch-Out arrives in the arcade. Before Little Mac was a pixelated star on the NES, he was a wireframe giant in the arcade. The cabinet was a beast. It used 2 monitors stacked vertically. Why? Because Nintendo had a surplus of monitors sitting in their warehouse after the Donkey Kong craze died down, and they told their developers to find a way to use them. The top screen showed stats, and the bottom showed the action. This was also the first game that legendary composer Koji Kondo of Mario and Zelda fame ever wrote music for.
It is rumored amongst the most intelligent races of NORAD that first came the dragons.
March 16th, 1999, EverQuest debuts on the PC. In 1999, the 3D MMORPG was a terrifyingly new concept. When EverQuest launched, Sony executives had a very low expectation. They thought it might be a niche hobby. Instead, it became EverCraft. It introduced the concept of the corpse run, where you'd lose all your items upon death and have to navigate back to your body while naked and defenseless. It was brutal, it was social, and it proved that virtual worlds like NORAD were the future of gaming.
Guilds and alliances formed, bound together through common goals and the sharing of ideas.
March 20th, 2006. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion debuts on the Xbox 360 and PC. This was the wow moment for the 7th generation of console. Oblivion introduced Radiant AI, which was supposed to give NPCs complex daily schedule, even if it mostly resulted in them staring at walls. But more important, it popularized the modern RPG open world. That moment when you leave the sewers and the HDR lighting hits the grass, that changed what we expected from console gaming forever.
Please? Nook Inc. Getaway Package charter flight will soon be arriving at the deserted island.
March 20th, 2020. Animal Crossing New Horizons arrives on the Switch. I don't think any game in history has ever had a more perfect or more eerie release date. Dropping just as the global lockdowns began, New Horizons became a substitute for real life. People held weddings on their island, graduation ceremonies, and even political rallies. It sold over 13 million copies in its first 6 weeks. It wasn't just a game, it was the 2020 town square. On March 21st, 1969, Konami was officially born. The name is a mashup of the names of the 3 founders, and I apologize in advance because I know I'm going to get these wrong. Kagemasa Kozuki, Yoshinobu Nakakama, and Tatsuo Miyasoka. As I mentioned in the opening, they started with jukeboxes. It took them until 1973 to even incorporate as Konami Industry Co., and they didn't really look at video games until the late 1970s. Their transition to the arcade was a masterclass in design. In 1981, they gave the world Frogger and Scramble. Scramble was actually a massive technical leap. It was one of the first side-scrolling shooters with distinct levels and a fuel system. By the time they hit the NES era, Konami was arguably the most prestigious third-party developer on Earth. We're talking about Contra, Castlevania, Gradius, and the legendary Konami code, up, up, down, down, you know what the code is. They went from jukebox needles to defining the stealth action genre with Metal Gear and psychological horror with Silent Hill. And even if their relationship with traditional gaming has changed recently, we cannot ignore the 57 years of DNA they've pumped into the industry. For a long time, the face of PC gaming was Myst, that atmospheric pre-rendered puzzle game. But on March 22nd, 2002, a new king was crowned. Electronic Arts announced that The Sims had shipped over 6.3 million copies, officially becoming the best-selling PC game of all time. It was a massive victory for Will Wright and Maxis. It proved that you didn't need dragons or space marines to sell millions. You just needed a game that let people live out their ideal lives, or, let's be honest, remove the ladder from the swimming pool. And that's a wrap for this week. This has been a massive dive into the archives, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Looking ahead to next week, we're going to have a very special episode. We'll be celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Game Boy Advance launching in Japan back in 2001. And we're going to talk about the 30th anniversary of the Resident Evil series. Plus, we'll see if we can find any more jukebox repair shops turned legends. If you like this show, be sure to hit the subscribe button. That way you get the show on the day it comes out, and it really helps the show get discovered by other gamers that remember what it was like to use floppy disks. The show is also available in audio form on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. The art of this show has been done by Ms. Tink. The show is written, produced, directed, and hosted by myself, Doug Coleman. And when I'm not playing the old games off stream, you can find me streaming on Twitch as the Robust One, and I'm currently addicted to Pokopia. Don't forget to save your game, and I'll see you next week.